My name is Cassandra Elphinstone, and I'm a PhD student in the Riesberg and Henry labs. I'm studying Arctic plants and how they're adjusting to warmer conditions. My supervisor, about 30 years ago, set up these open-top warming chambers around the tundra, and basically they warm the tundra by 1 to 3 degrees Celsius above the outside temperatures. For the last 30 years, he's been observing how the plants in these chambers differ from the plants that are left outside the chambers in regular temperatures. And what they've noticed is the plants flower earlier, they grow taller, they have larger leaves, and they produce more seed that does better. And so this means that they're able to deal with these warmer conditions. And then the question is, how are they doing this? And so I'm studying both mountain avens, which is this beautiful white flower, and also a heather species called Arctic white heather. And what I'm doing is extracting the DNA from these plants. And DNA has methylation groups that can be on it. And when there's a methyl group on the DNA, it turns the genes off, or silences the expression of that region, that genomic region. And so the question I'm asking is, where are these genes being turned off and where are the genes being turned on differentially in and out of these chambers? Climate change is a large issue, especially in the Arctic. It's a place where they're seeing the most rapid change happening. I've spoken to people whose best friend had died because they fell through the ice that summer. And it's a huge issue that's changing really fast up north, which is kind of like the initial signs of what may be happening further south very soon. First we fly to Ottawa, then we fly up to Iqaluit, and then through Pond Inlet, Arctic Bay, and then Resolute Bay. And Resolute Bay is a base camp for all the high Arctic camps. There we wait till the weather is clear enough for us to fly up to Ellesmere, and then we spend the next few months watching the snow melt, and the flowers come out, and all the birds come back to the lowland. Some years we have foxes that come and explore the camp, and usually early on, while the sea ice is still frozen, we get polar bears that wander through. We live in these old buildings from the 1950s. Every year the polar bears break into these buildings while we're gone in the winter, and so when we come back in the spring, we spend a day or two just cleaning up all of the mess that these bears have created, which is always somewhat interesting. So I think one of the things that's really complicated about climate change is nobody is exactly sure what's going to happen, especially in ecology. There's so many variables. What we're seeing so far in the Arctic is that a lot of shrubs, so the kind of larger, older, longer-lived species, are moving in and taking over, and a lot of the kind of smaller forbs are becoming less and less frequent because they're getting shaded out by these larger species. But I think one of the trickiest things about climate change is that we're seeing more variability in temperature, in precipitation, in all of the environmental factors, which makes it much more difficult to know exactly how things will respond. One interesting fact is this summer was record high temperatures in the Arctic. So I think it got to something like 22 degrees on the northern tip of Ellesmere Island, which is way, way higher than it normally is. But on the other hand, the year before that, when I was up there, it was record low temperatures. None of the plants flowered. It was a super cold year. So that kind of captures this variability that we're seeing. And that's one of the reasons I think a lot of people who don't believe in climate change say it's not a real thing. But in reality, it's the variability that is causing many plants and animals to have to respond in different ways.
I can see what you can see, and you can see what I can be, but they don't understand me.
Once I was in the field and we ran out of fuel for the stove, and so we were trying to figure out how to cook our pasta, and we realized that we could maybe use our knowledge of the plants to stick these plants under a rock, start a fire with them, and then boil our pasta, and it actually worked.